Hey everybody, this is Zach and Joe, your local Pittsburgh realtors, here today with the owners and creators of the Around the 412 podcast, Smitty and Tyler. How you guys doing? Thanks for joining us.
Doing great, man. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm excited.
So what has been your inspiration or why you started your podcast? And tell us a little bit about what it's about first.
Tyler, I got to start here. All right. So it's funny. Every time someone asks this, I try to find like a creative way to come up with saying the exact same origin story, because you can really trace it all back to Twitter. Tyler, myself, and at the time when we started for the first 3 years or so, we actually had a third co-host. We were just talking on Twitter. We were like, we should start like a hockey podcast. And that's what it was going to be, what it started as. But I was like, man, as much as I love the Pens, I love the Steelers and Pirates equally as much. Like, if we're going to do a sports podcast, we're not just sticking to one sport. So it's got to be all three. Really went into it not knowing how it was going to go. We literally started out with just one Yeti mic in the middle of a table, recording from the top of a concession stand. And it's the way that it's developed over time is insane. But like, I would say that our biggest inspiration in wanting to start the show was almost like a reverse inspiration, if you will. And I know Cody touched on this as well, but when you look at the Pittsburgh sports media, to us, it's just so outdated, and they needed new voices and new faces to represent it. And we wanted to be that. We were sick of listening to the guys on 93.7 The Fan, 105.9 The X, WDV, all these radio stations where these guys, and credit to them, they've all had great careers, but we just thought it was time for some fresh faces and voices in the industry. And we were here to provide that because we are doing it, for fun. And, it's not our job. We're actually fans of these teams. We're not brought in as, paid from New York to just come in, no shots fired or anything. Just coming into a radio station. We're doing this because we have the passion for these teams, and we wanted to, show the fans that you can be fans of the team and really do this thing. So, Tyler, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, but again, we've talked about this so many times.
I know. Yeah, we apologize for the questions you've heard. I'm sure you're.
Oh, no.
You got to do it.
We love explaining it to people because people ask us anytime they don't know. But because for a while, no one really knew who we were. We were just doing this for fun as well. We didn't know if anybody would listen. We just knew that we all love to talk sports, and we figured if we're going to talk sports amongst ourselves, why don't we put a podcast out? That's pretty cool. And I know at the time, Smitty mentioned, we wanted to do a hockey podcast at first, and I listened to a podcast called the Steve Dangle Podcast. They mainly cover Toronto, but they also cover the entire NHL. And I also listened to Spit and Chicklets from Barstool Sports. So I listened to those guys. And then I would say from Pittsburgh, the guys that really helped us out a lot, and I feel like we need to give them a shout out every time we talk about our origin, is the guys over at North Shore 9. They do a baseball podcast. It's all about the Pirates. And Anthony DiNardo and formerly Ryan Alexander, he's no longer with the show, but those guys really helped us a lot in our early days, basically figure out what we were doing, because we literally had no clue how to start a podcast. We just knew we wanted to do one. Mm-hmm. But they kind of showed us the ropes. We literally even asked them, how do we know when to talk and what to say, and they're like, you'll just figure that out. It just comes naturally. But nowadays, Smitty and I, we could just go on a show. And last week, normally we have a list of topics that we talk about, but last week we literally didn't even have a list, and it was just all off the cuff, and it just comes natural. But yeah, big shout out to those guys at North Shore 9, just because those are the guys that really set the groundwork for us and helped us figure out what the heck we were doing.
Yeah. In our business, what you were talking, Smitty, we think call that kind of a disruptor. Some big company or an agent does something different or changes something that nobody else is doing, and it's successful. And then just in sports, everybody copycats it because they say, hey, that's working. Let's try that. Let's do that now. So it's kind of cool. I think with Cody, we talked about this too. And I gave the analogy of when MTV first started, how it gave the opportunity for all different groups that would have never got on the radio to get out there and get their music out there to the whole world, literally. And it was a big disruptor. So it's kind of interesting when you hear people get into things. They start off thinking, this is going to be nothing, or I'm just doing this to entertain myself, and it turns into something. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
and
and
I think that you've seen, Tyler, not to cut you off, but
No, you're
I
fine.
think that you've seen in Pittsburgh as well, like a movement of sorts. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen it too, but it seems like so many more people have like podcasts or blogs now from when we first started back in 2017. Like, I've had people text me, and I'm not taking credit for that, by the way, because again, we owe North Shore 9 a ton of credit for us getting off the ground. But I've literally had multiple people reach out to me and be like, it's crazy, like what you guys started. I was like, no, we didn't start anything. Like, there were plenty of podcasts around when we got going, but like the movement that we've seen in Pittsburgh since we started, like, it's insane, and it's great. I think that there's a ton of room for it. The content creation is probably at an all-time high in Pittsburgh right now, which is great to see.
Yeah.
And I was just gonna say, I think that the thing that a lot of people like about not just our podcast, but all these other ones and other blogs that are showing up is that we are, and Smitty touched on this, we're not just like typical media that has to stay unbiased and we just cover the teams. We are fans. We have our opinions of the fans, and we have biases, sure, but anybody who thinks that we just like kiss the team's butts, that's not what we do. If you listen to many of our shows, we are very critical of a lot of the players and teams as well. So I just think
Tristan Jari.
Yeah, ask Tristan Jari, ask Will Craig, ask Brian Hayes the other night. I mean, you get our just raw reactions and our raw emotion as fans, and I think that is just kind of like a breath of fresh air. Sorry, that a lot of people have been wanting, because a lot of it, when you look at either national media or local Pittsburgh media, they can say what they push as their own opinion, but a lot of it is probably just a narrative that they're pushing out, and even on some shows, you probably know that they're just disagreeing with each other just to get better clicks or better views or whatever. When Smitty and I mean, we have a lot of opinions that we mostly agree on. We don't disagree too often, but I mean, we're not just going to disagree on purpose to try to get people to listen. We're going to be genuine with everybody that listens.
Right. Yeah. So you guys are obviously great sports fans. What is your backgrounds? How did you guys get to this point? Are you both Pittsburgh guys? Did you come here from somewhere else? How did that?
So I'll let you start with
Tell
that
us about
process.
a little Smitty and a little Tyler.
So, yeah, I mean, I could say Pittsburgh born and raised. Realistically, Beaver, Pennsylvania born and raised. A lot of people got mad at us that we called our show Around the 412, even though we're from the 724. But yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh area born and raised. It's funny though, like my dad, he's from Utah originally, so like he didn't really have a Pittsburgh sports fandom, so I kind of just grew that on my own. And I think this is because I liked to play sports, and then just naturally being in the area, I loved watching sports, and you just naturally attach to the Pittsburgh sports teams. And I vividly remember going to Pirates games as kids and falling in love with the Pirates, watching the Steelers every Sunday. And I remember a specific memory for hockey, and I'm sure you can see behind me. Hockey, I love all three teams equally, but hockey is probably my favorite sport. But I remember watching a Penguins game when I was 5 years old in my friend's mom's sewing room, and then I was instantly hooked. So it's just like I fell in love with the teams different ways, but I love them all equally. And the root of that, though, is just from where I am. I am a Pittsburgher, even though I'm from Beaver County. I consider myself a Pittsburgher, and I'm not going to be someone that likes the other teams just because it's different. Although I'll let Smitty touch on that. But yeah, just being from the area, that's how I love the Pittsburgh teams.
I was just say, was that a segue for me that you add in the fact?
Little bit.
You guys are professionals.
So like Tyler, I'm also 724 Beaver County, in Akron, Pennsylvania, specifically. But I like him. I also consider the 412 to be my home. I mean, I don't plan on ever leaving this area. Actually, there was one point. Was that 2018? I'm running the years together now, Tyler.
Yeah, it was 2018. When you considered going to Atlanta?
Yeah, I had my company. I got offered a position in Atlanta. And just after, really thinking about it for a while, I decided to stay home. But getting into my sports fandom, it's funny because I'm now a Steelers season ticket holder, but at one point I didn't like the Steelers. They were actually the last Pittsburgh team that I fell in love with. I'd always only liked the Penguins for hockey, only liked the Pirates for football. for whatever reason, I used to root for whoever the Steelers were playing just to upset my dad. So I was a massive Tom Brady guy when I was younger.
Oh God.
No, and then that's why I always tell people like Big Ben was literally the only Steelers quarterback that I know, because I became a fan pretty much along with his career. Like up until 2004 when we drafted him, that's the years where I was rooting against them. And to that point, now I consider myself, the biggest Steelers fan in the world. So it's crazy how that's evolved, but that's why Tyler had to throw that in there to segue to me that, he wasn't just rooting against the Steelers to be trendy, because that's how I sort of started out my fandom. But as far like even I would say playing sports honestly got me into the sports even more so. Like I played all three. I'm sorry, I didn't play hockey. My dad played hockey. I would play street hockey every now and then, but football and baseball, I grew up playing. The first game that I played football and hit somebody, I thought I was going to end up being the next James Harrison, but obviously that didn't play out that way.
So I'm a 724 guy too, but I was down south.
Oh, nice. Okay.
That's all. I mean, we're all close enough. We can be 412. But
I'm a legitimate 412 guy.
All right.
Yeah.
There's
So
only
that-
this one.
Listen, believe it or not, we literally had people upset that we were not from like the 412 area code and get mad at us for it.
just start lying.
My wife and I have had that discussion so many times. She's from Lower Borough, which is 724. And she went to Penn State, and she's a diehard Penn State fan. I did not go to Pitt, but I grew up and I live 2 miles from the campus. I spent tons and tons of time there. I worked for Xerox for years and was there every single day all year long. And I said to her, I've probably spent more time on Pitt's campus than you spent on Penn State's campus. She said, but you didn't go to school there. And I said, yeah, you're a Penguins fan and a Steeler fan, but you didn't grow up in Pittsburgh. And that's different to her. The proximity to Pitt is not a reason to be a fan, but her proximity to Pittsburgh it's okay for her to be a Penn State or a Steeler or a Penguin fan. So people have very strict rules about those kind of things. So I could see people get upset.
Yeah. Well, actually, when we had, like I said, the third host, like he's a 412 guy. So it at least made sense. 1/3 of us were. But now that he's not here, we just got 2 724 guys running around the 412.
That makes sense though, because your description on, I think, maybe Twitter and Instagram that says the trio, but then it only has 2 names. And Joe and I were both we were both like, is that an inside joke? Why is that?
We figured there was a story there.
That's only
Probably
2
just
names.
a
that
typo
says
now.
trio.
Well, we do a fantasy football show when obviously that's in season, and my host for that, Donnie Drew, and he's also in the bio. So that might have been where that was coming from. But if it says trio, that's not the case for most weeks.
Right. I always ask this question to people that are fans of all Pittsburgh sports. Because I'm an NBA fan, I love watching basketball. If we had a team, would you be a fan of basketball, or is it? I've had people tell me like we would never even get an NBA team; it just wouldn't work around here. It's not a basketball city. What's your take on that? Do you have a team because we don't have one? Is it the Sixers because they're the closest, or what is it?
So my take on the NBA has always been I like players, not teams. So like I've never been like a fan of the Cavs just because they're the closest, or the Sixers. But I have individual players I like. I'm really into college basketball. Like my teams, like my dad's from Utah. Like I love BYU, and then Pitt is also my other college team. But when it came to professional basketball, if Pittsburgh ever got a team, I would claim them as my team instantly. But I will say, as much as I'd like that to happen, it'll never happen, because that means if they go, one of the other 3 teams has to go, or if they come, one of the other 3 teams has to go, because we technically shouldn't even have 3 teams, the size of the metropolitan area as it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's another question. If you had to get rid of one, who would it be? If we're getting an NBA team and they said we're getting the NBA team, you got to vote on who to vote out.
Yeah.
Who's getting out?
Well, I mean, the easy answer is the Pirates, but financially, with how much money each of them bring in, it would be the Penguins. Like they've already almost moved once.
Yeah.
Like they would be the team that win if we got an NBA team. To answer your question, like Tyler, I am just big on players. Damian Lillard's my favorite player in the league. Like wherever he plays, that's the team that I consider my team. So right now it's Portland, but I kind of want him to get out of there because he doesn't have any help. For the rest of these playoffs, man, I like Utah or Phoenix. Like whoever comes out of those West, if it's one of those two teams, that's who I'm rooting for. As long as it's not Brooklyn. I can't stand Brooklyn.
Me too. I just want anyone but them to win. I don't care.
Also,
So, yeah.
Donovan Mitchell's my favorite player. I figured I'd throw that out.
Stud
Smitty
too.
threw us in. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I got to get my basketball talk somehow, some way though. We don't have a team, yet, so it's like
Yeah,
not
I mean,
very often do I get
We
to-
like basketball. We don't have a pro team, and then we don't really.
Yeah.
I mean, we used to talk about college like football a little bit, but we really just don't anymore. So
The show was
just
too
don't
long.
really. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we used to have shows like whenever we would, especially in the fall, where we would cover a little bit of baseball. Hockey starts up, football's midseason, and you have college football as well. Like our shows would be like 2 hours or like pushing 2 hours, and
Yeah.
so at a certain point, it's like, all right, we got to split it up, and it got to the point where. I mean, it also worked that we are with the allsteelers.com, but we separated. We just have a Steelers show and we have a Penguins and Pirates show as well. So we even split it up more than that.
Okay, that's cool. You kind of touched on it there with the Sports Illustrated. What are your goals? What do you guys hope to do with the podcast? It's obviously it's going good, but are you trying to sell it to Spotify for $100 million? What's the goal?
Hey, I was just saying, I mean, it's as always, I would say that the top goal is for it to just become our careers completely. Like we
Yeah.
both still work other jobs. So, I mean, that is the goal, but I don't want to, cap it at that. Like, I don't want to say that there is an end game because I think that the sky's the limit for this thing. I would say to answer that though, just become, two of the focal points, the faces that you think about when you talk about Pittsburgh sports media. You think of around the 412. As far as like goals just for the show itself, like I said, it just to be our careers and people think about us when they think about Pittsburgh sports.
That's pretty cool. I like that. You guys you've had some big names on. We've seen your list of videos. I mean, that's got to help.
Yeah, our boy Minka Fitzpatrick. He's actually I've been talking to his people. He's supposed to come back on. Two-time Stanley Cup champion Brian Rust has been on the show. Same with him. But he's a new father, so I know that his time's pretty restricted as of right now. But we actually, one of our friends is an artist and does drawings. I don't know if you've seen any of his stuff because we always are tagged in it and retweet it and stuff, Alex Nicholson. But he does hand-drawn portraits for players and stuff, and he's working on something right now for Rusty for us to give to him when he comes on the show. So
That's cool. Now we got to start giving gifts out to our guests. It's a little hard to do, but we take the gifts. We don't give them.
Yeah, when we interview restaurants or someone like that, if we video in the store, they always want to give us stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Or take a hoagie, there's a candy store up the street that the lady always wants to give us candy. So it has some benefits. You might want to start doing some on-site podcasts.
Yeah. Now that I'm hearing about this, I mean, I got a ton of ideas. We always mention. Are you guys familiar with Pepe's, the sandwich place?
Yeah, the sub place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're not sponsored by them, but if you listen to the show, you would think that we are. With how
Literally, at any interview we have with a Pittsburgh athlete, I always bring up Pepe's, asking if they've had it. Because eventually during the interview, when we talk about mainly sports, but we also talk about stuff outside sports, and that part of that is food and food around Pittsburgh, and Pepe's always gets brought up.
Well, as somebody who lived in DC for about 6 years, I can tell you that you could probably start a whole nother podcast related to Pittsburgh pizza and sub places, because we have such a wide variety of local places. In DC, I mean, I was there a long time ago, 20, 30 years ago, but I mean, they had Domino's, Pizza Hut, and like one regional place, but there was not a pizza shop in every neighborhood like there is here in Pittsburgh. And, the variety and the styles of pizza, and you have Beto's with the unmelted cheese, and you have all these different hoagie shops and everything. That's kind of a unique thing, I think, to Pittsburgh, and maybe like New York, Chicago, a few other big cities, but it's unique to our city.
I have a friend right now that's visiting in Pittsburgh from New York, and they like sent me a message and they were like, dude, the pizza here sucks. I was like, dude, you're going from New York to Pittsburgh. Like, Pittsburgh is fine. It's just you're used to New York.
It's a different.
You can do much worse. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I was shocked because we have our friends over at Pittsburgh Clothing Company. They did a bracket of pizza places in Pittsburgh, and it was like a full like 64 team bracket of pizza shops, and I was like, I can't even name that many pizza places. Like I might be able to name 10, probably not even. I didn't know that there were that many like notable pizza shops in Pittsburgh.
Well, since you're 724 guys, if you come into Squirrel Hill where we're at, we have 4 or 5 really good ones. We'll do a little, like Barstool Sports. We'll go around each one. And
oh, nice.
I was just saying, my favorite in this area is probably Yolanda's, which I'm not sure if either of you guys are familiar with, but
I've heard of
Tyler
it.
would be. Yeah.
Never had it. That's what you said. I mean, with 64 of them, who's gone to 64 different pizza shops to get a pizza? Not that many people.
Those guys at the guys at Pittsburgh Clothing Company. That's
that would take months and years, and then you'd be so sick of any type of pizza.
So this kind of translates into a question that I was thinking of is, besides food, which we've talked about, and sports, which we've talked about, a lot of our people that watch our videos are people who are relocating to Pittsburgh or maybe lived in Beaver County and want to move to Squirrel Hill or Greenfield where we're at. What are your favorite things about Pittsburgh area, and what do you think makes it special?
I'll let you answer, Tyler, because I got to think about this.
I mean, I always say to people, and this is to people that come on our show, I should say, that I think Pittsburgh, the people in this city, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe it's just because I'm from here, care more about Pittsburgh. And I know we're a sports show because that's what we relate it to. Like, they care about their sports teams, and they care about the pride of just being from Pittsburgh more than like other people do from their cities. Like, I feel like if you take like someone from Los Angeles, like, that person does not care about being from Los Angeles as much as the Pittsburgher is going to care about being from Pittsburgh. I just think we take a great pride in being from this area. And I think you just feel that, like, anybody who comes visits here, like they just know that everybody loves Pittsburgh. I like anytime, and I know we relate it to sports because that's what our show is, but everybody loves like all the Pittsburgh sports teams. And we ask the athletes that, and they say they can feel it. Like, anybody who gets drafted to Pittsburgh, instantly their mentions blow up, their followers go up immensely, and like, you're basically just like a family member of the city. I mean, we just recently had like Josh Dobbs on the show, and he said like he could go into like a gas station like a day or two before the game, and like people were like tell him good luck and like have a good game. And that goes with everybody. And I just think that Pittsburgh itself, everybody is like very tight knit, and they're very prideful just to be from here.
Yeah, I think the people are the big thing for me. Well, first off, real quick, I would say just some of the scenic views that you can find throughout Pittsburgh. I think it's one of the more underrated cities. Shout out to Dave the Cello for finding those places all the time. But yeah, I think the people too, because you think about it. I think, Joe and Zach, you guys might have touched on this in the episode that I listened to with Cody on here. But so many people will leave Pittsburgh, but they never really leave. They're still Pittsburgh. Like, you can go and find that person years later. Maybe they're living halfway across the country, and you can still tell that that's a Pittsburgh person right there that you're talking to.
Right. Yeah. That's when the announcers, I think I said this exact thing talking to Cody, is when the announcers say, Steelers fans travel well, they're not driving to every away game. They live in Cincinnati now. They live in San Diego now. They're just still Pittsburgh fans. And to Tyler's point, I was at the Pirate game last night. And my friend that I was with, he asked a Dodgers fan. He was just walking by us, had a Dodgers jersey on. He said, "Hey, is Pujols playing tonight? Is this going to be his last game in Pittsburgh, maybe?" And this guy, he said, "Albert Pujols?" And he didn't even know he was on the Dodgers, and he was wearing a Dodgers jersey. And we're like, Dude, come on. Like, I don't think Pittsburgh fans are like that. I mean, we know backup quarterbacks. If Albert Pujols was on the team, we'd know about it.
Yeah.
And this guy was like, he didn't even know he was on the team. So,
Oh, that's funny.
it is a different kind of fan here for sure.
Mm-hmm.
What motivates you guys? Is it sort of like your influences, or maybe the Barstool Sports kind of guys? What motivates you other than wanting to do like your dream job, maybe?
I think that we have motivations both like positively and negatively. As I mentioned with like, the local radio and stuff that we have here right now, the faces of the local media, like we disagree, we butt heads with those guys a lot. And so in a way that's almost like a motivation to not be like them, to be something different, to be our completely own different thing. But then you have motivation. We see again, just like this trend that we've seen in Pittsburgh recently with these podcasts and these blogs all, blowing up together. And, I started like a Discord and, kind of like a hub for everybody that's making content in Pittsburgh to all be in together and just share each other's work, and, find ways to collaborate with each other. And like they are, people are working together on this stuff now, and they all want to see each other blow up together. So I would say that, both for and against, we find ways to motivate ourselves. And again, to obviously reach the goal of this being our careers. But I don't know, what Tyler's motivation is, but I would say mine is, again, just to be somebody that people think about when they think about Pittsburgh sports.
Yeah, I would say I just want this thing to be the best that it can possibly be. Along with Smitty, I want it to be one of the main parts of being a Pittsburgh sports fan is what Around the 412 is. And it's crazy because like when we first started this, I said this a little bit earlier, we didn't really expect anybody to listen. It was literally just us talking, and if we got some listeners, that was fun. And for a while, it was mainly just like our friends and like a couple of friends that we met through Twitter that were listening. But now we've got listeners from like different countries, like different continents, and you just see like how
18% of our listens are from the UK.
Wow,
That's cool.
that's interesting.
Yeah. So, you just see we see like the way we've grown. And also another thing, when we started this, we did not think we would be talking to people like Minka Fitzpatrick. Like that's not where we thought we would be at, especially like only a few years in. So the fact that we're able to do stuff like that, and just seeing our growth and seeing like the other people around us grow as well. There's so many content creators now in Pittsburgh. That's just really what motivates me, and like I know motivates us is like we just want not only just us but everybody to just keep growing and just become some of the faces of Pittsburgh media and I guess entertainment as well. Because I think that's what we consider ourselves as well, as like entertainment. So
that's what we need Twitter verified to consider us as well. So
yeah, true. We're trying to get verified on Twitter right now. But,
so tell people, how can they find your podcast? How can they find? I see you're wearing a 412 hat very proudly here tonight. How can they find out everything they need to know? And let's say they watch this video and said, hey, those guys are interesting to listen to. And, obviously England recognizes them as being significant. So how do I tune into them? How do I buy their merchandise? How do I do all those kind of things? And engulf myself totally with their show.
The UK, Canada, Mexico. We got listens everywhere. But Around the 412, that's literally just our handle on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. You search it, you'll find us right away. If you're watching back the video, it would be this logo that you see as the profile picture. We are on Spotify. We're on, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio,
YouTube,
Spreaker, straight from
want
Spreaker,
the videos as well.
YouTube. Please on YouTube, because we got the subscribers that we need to become the affiliate or whatever they consider it, but we need the watch time. So yeah, please do watch the shows on YouTube as opposed to listening. If you want the merch, that all can be found actually on our network's website. So Actually, last summer we signed a contract with Crowworthy Network. That's who our podcast is through. So if you go to crowworthy.com store, you'll find all our stuff there. We got hats in trucker and dad styles. We got t-shirts, we got hoodies, we got water bottles, we got mugs, we got shorts, we got sweatpants, we got it all. Long sleeve shirts.
All right, sounds good.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. Yeah, anything else anybody wants to add? Any more shout outs?
I don't think so. I think that you guys, I got to reach out to my boy to have Pittsburgh Clothing Company. We've mentioned them too many times on here. I think you guys got to have them on.
Yeah, we'd love to have that. We're open to anybody. And, you know, like you said, you know, we're kind of doing this. We're doing things that are interesting to us with the idea that they'll be interesting to other people and helping other small businesses and in the area that people are going to help. So once again, like you mentioned, with all the blogs being collaborative, that's kind of where we're at. And
awesome.
You know, we've interviewed a lot of small businesses, and they've said, hey, my friend owns a game store. My friend owns a bookstore. You should talk to them next. So it's really kind of heartwarming how there are still good people out there that care about sometimes even their competitors, and they view them as associates or not necessarily as competition. They view them as cooperating kind of partners almost in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think you look at like what we're doing. There's like we could be, and everybody else in the same space could be like, oh, I don't want to help out another podcast. Like, why would I give them listens or whatever that I could be, you know, having that I just want them all to myself. But I think that that's what's so unique about this community. And, you know, kind of, I guess, going back to just the way that we see Pittsburgh as a whole. But I really like, just to wrap up, at least on my end, I love what you guys are doing. Because like you said, I think that it all kind of goes back to what the circumstances that it kind of created for a lot of people during this pandemic. And we're not fully out of that yet. And I don't know when everybody is going to be financially recovered, if they're going to be. A lot of people won't ever come back from that. So what you guys are doing to, you know, shine a spotlight on anybody that you can, I really appreciate that. And I think that a lot of people will.
Yeah, small businesses has always been. You just feel bad ordering something off Amazon. You know, if you can avoid it. But I think, you know, podcasts they're a small business too. A lot of people don't can maybe even realize that or consider it that way. But you know, you're just as much of a small business as Joe and I are. So
yeah, absolutely.
And I don't know any other realtors that are talking to sports podcasts. So we got this market cornered.
We got the sports fan house buyer market.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Podcast hosts got to buy houses too. You know?
Well, we appreciate it because I mean, most of the time we're the ones doing the interviews. It's not many times that we get to be interviewed ourselves and like answer the questions. So we like talking about this stuff. So thank you guys for having us on.
Well, we're not Minka Fitzpatrick, but we like sports. We'll talk to you about sports sometime. If you have a few dead minutes, you need to get air.
We'll talk sports with anybody. So
yeah, man. We'll do it again sometime. We'll do a part 2 and
sounds good.
Part 3. Check back up on you if there's any more. And
hopefully we're verified on Twitter by then.
What's that?
Hopefully we're verified on Twitter by then.
Okay, we'll check back in when you get that blue check mark. Thanks again, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you. Yep.
Yeah, thank you.